Trump landing a major concession from Iran. Let's check it out. Welcome to Rob Schmitt Tonight. This afternoon, during an Oval Office event with the new Homeland Security head, Markwayne Mullin, the president indicated that Iran had given the United States a rather sizable gift, evidently as a show of good faith during negotiations to potentially end Operation Epic Fury. Take a listen.
They did something yesterday that was amazing, actually. They gave us a present, and the present arrived today. And it was a very big present worth a tremendous amount of money. And I'm not going to tell you what that present is, but it was a very significant prize. And they gave it to us, and they said they were going to give it. So that meant one thing to me: we're dealing with the right people. It was oil and gas related, and it was a very nice thing they did. But what it showed me is that we're dealing with the right people.
Dealing with the right people. This is a major moment here. He hinted at it about an hour later as everybody wondered, what on earth is this gift? We learned. The story started popping up. Iran is now allowing non-hostile vessels to move through the Strait of Hormuz. That is major. That means millions of barrels of oil can finally escape the Persian Gulf, where they've sat for 3 weeks, along with sulfur as well, which is critical for fertilizer all around the world as we move into spring and planting season here in the Northern Hemisphere. Ships affiliated with the U.S. or Israel will not be allowed to pass. So he said non-hostile, right? Non-hostile toward Iran. But that is still a major concession, as a lot of product will now be able to get out of the Persian Gulf and get onto the markets, the oil markets, the sulfur markets, etc. It's a big deal. Trump said today Iran badly wants to make a deal, something that makes a lot of sense as the Pentagon has now sent thousands more troops to the Middle East. The 82nd Airborne is en route very soon. That's 3,000 more, and as reports indicate that Iran could be down to its last 1,000 missiles. So we're wondering, is something really big happening here, something really big about to pop here with Iran? The Hormuz concession is proof that something has radically shifted in just the last couple of days. Trump today saying we've killed the original government, then we've killed the next group of leaders that came behind them, insinuating that this third group now has been much easier to deal with because they clearly see what happens if they're not. That statement was questioned by the CBS White House reporter today, asking the president if he trusts the people that he's now negotiating with.
I don't trust anybody. I don't trust you. I mean, that's only because I know you. But if I didn't know you, I'd probably have more trust. But I don't trust anyone.
Why bother?
Why do you say that? Why do you say what makes you trust? Do you think I trust them? I don't trust them.
Trump says there's no trust in this deal, which is critically important when you're dealing with a country like Iran. He's making judgments based on action. And today's action, opening up the Strait of Hormuz, makes clear what we've known for the past 3 weeks, that Iran is being decimated. And despite very stubborn attempts to claim resilience that the media has just loved, hoping that they'll prove that Trump cannot do this, that he's ineffective in this war, the regime really is collapsing. Tonight, the New York Times is reporting that we have delivered a 15-point plan to end this war. Our demands, many of which we laid out last night, the same kinds. No more proxy terrorism from Iran. No nuclear anything at all, weapons, building, uranium, all of that out, and 5 years without a ballistic missile program as well. Whatever leadership is in place at this point inside Iran, if it wants to survive, needs to completely de-radicalize and completely de-weaponize for a long time. That's not something the Iranians have ever indicated they'd be willing to do, and if they don't, as Trump has said, they're just going to die just like their predecessors. So this is the hard bargain. Meanwhile, Democrats who've been rooting for Iran for the past 3 weeks have vocally questioned every single claim that the president has made on this, and they keep finding themselves to be wrong. Yesterday, they all jumped on the denial from the head of Iran's parliament after claims that he was negotiating with the White House. He put out on Twitter, he said, no, I'm not doing that, none of that on X. Iran said there were no negotiations. Democrats then all jumped on and claimed that Trump was lying about progress with Iran to juice the markets, to keep oil down, to send the Dow up, And then today, CNN had to report that, oh yeah, Iran did admit that, yeah, there have been talks. Take a listen to Obama's CIA director, John Brennan.
Well, I tend to believe Iran more than I do Donald Trump, because he could not acknowledge the truth, even when it is, he's slapped in the face with it repeatedly. And it's clear that, he is flailing right now. He's trying to figure out how he's going to get out of this debacle that he has created. And so he's going to make these claims about negotiations, that the Iranians now are sending signals that they really want to make a deal, and indicates that they're going to make a deal on our terms. I don't think anything close to the truth in that statement.
This is why you don't want. I mean, how dumb does that statement sound? That's from 24 hours ago. How dumb does that sound tonight when you see all of this now in front of you? Trump is flailing, says John Brennan, one of the brilliant minds that handed us the JCPOA that gave Iran so much money as they continued to build their nuclear program, and idiots just like him. Jake Sullivan, Biden's national security advisor of the same ilk, right, was on The Daily Show last night. Recall that Biden's Iran envoy was Robert Malley. Robert Malley was removed from that position and from the State Department after it was discovered that he was effectively a double agent for Iran, suspected of leaking classified information to the Iranians as he played as Biden's Iran envoy. This is why the Iranians have been playing this country, and specifically the Democrat Party, like a fiddle for years, because they've got agents inside, whether it's with Obama, whether it's with Biden. They have control of our government. For some reason, Jon Stewart believed that Jake Sullivan was an appropriate guest to talk about Iran and to slam Trump on Iran last night. Sullivan, with a straight face, claimed that Trump had a great deal with Iran before launching this operation and was too stupid to take it.
When Trump comes back, there is actually an opportunity to do a deal because he's the guy who pulled out. And just a few days before we started bombing Iran, the Iranians put a proposal on the table in Geneva that went a long way towards resolving the nuclear issue. And my understanding is that our side, our negotiators, simply didn't understand what they were being offered, and they ignored it.
They didn't understand, according to Sullivan. Because, Iran always gives legitimate offers, and we just didn't understand how great it was. Iran was going to give us the world, and we just didn't understand it, and then we just launched this operation because we're so stupid, according to Jake Sullivan. By the way, Jake Sullivan's the guy who bragged about how quiet the Middle East was right before Hamas launched the October 7th attacks against Israel, an attack that was funded and planned by Iran. There is no one in foreign policy more incompetent than Jake Sullivan. Nobody should be more embarrassed about his legacy in that area, in that arena of government, than he should be. But for liberal media, of course, he is the expert. And he got some laughs mocking the Trump administration last night for not jumping all over Iran's great deal. Because Iran always offers up such great deals to the United States, we're just too stupid to take them. Maybe the deal that they offered Trump 4 weeks ago was as good as the Iran nuclear deal, which we all know was the greatest of all the deals. Jake Sullivan can testify to that. Lieutenant Colonel Tony Shaffer joins us now. Sir, good to have you here. I want to talk about this concession that the president hinted to, and then it came out later in the day, this opening of the Strait of Hormuz to ships that are not affiliated with the United States or Israel. Right. What do you think that means as far as where this war is right now?
Well, it means that we've won militarily. Now we're winning commercially. The big issue here, Rob, is getting sulfur, getting oil and gas moving through the strait immediately. There's no shortage of these things. It's just a supply chain gap. It's been essentially, it's like the carotid artery being cut off to part of the head. And I think that's what's about to come out. And the big thing is it's a huge concession by the fact this will start getting the world. We don't depend on that, Rob, but the rest of our allies and China depends on this sort of thing. So the more we can get this going, the better off the world's going to be economically. Plus, regarding the military operations, we have additional leverage, as you mentioned, coming in. The 82nd Airborne, we've got the Marines that are now on station. They're within less than a day's sail from being where they need to be to actually conduct military operations. So President Trump has got huge leverage that he's clearly effectively using, despite what the mainstream media and the morons from the Obama administration continue to say.
Yeah, I mean, listening to anybody from the Obama administration or the Biden administration talk about Iran, why are we listening to the worst, the people that have handled this the worst out of anyone in the world? Do you think that there's some credence to what the president, because with Iran, you know, they switch a lot. They'll make you think they're going to do something, then they don't do it. But the president says we've killed off enough of them that we've gotten down to a point where they realize if they don't deal with us, they're just going to die. Do you think that's how it is right now?
Oh, absolutely. We've gone down at least 4 tiers, Rob, going through their leadership. And I think those folks who are alive still want to be alive. And I think that's why they're now dealing directly with administration. Steve Wyckoff, by the way, is in Pakistan. Apparently is going to be face-to-face meetings between the United States and Iran to go through these 15 points. This is huge. And to your point about the Obama folks, Rob, they were the ones who have funded the very terror, the very death that our allies and we have experienced over the past 10 years. It's been horrible. Yeah. So I don't want to hear anything come out of the people who have literally funded the very violence against us and our allies. So we've made significant and effective progress over just 2 weeks.
Channel 12 Israel is indicating that a potential 30-day ceasefire could be coming. I keep thinking of like Lucy with the football, right? And I just feel like that would give Iran a chance to regroup. If you gave them 30 days of no bombings, could they put together a regime again? Would that be a mistake? How do you think that plays?
So this could be something good. Remember, we're using the Venezuela model here, Rob. We want to see who can come out and actually be in charge. Part of that is to see if they can turn off the IRGC. Remember, the Iranian Guard and the Quds Force are the ones who are kind of on automatic control, doing all the terror and shooting what they have left. So this could be not a bad thing because they have to get control of their country. Unlike Venezuela, we only took one guy out and the rest of the government fell in line. We've had to destroy the government, Rob, and we're hoping to help them reconstitute it. So I'm a Reagan guy, trust but verify.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, you don't think that this would be an opportunity for them to say, oh, yeah, we're going to do everything you want, and then they put together the evil regime again during that 30 days.
Well, anything could happen, but I don't think they have the resources left. At this point, they're down to probably their last 100, 150 missiles. They have no Navy, no Air Force. The IRGC literally is being strangled because they are not going to be able to get the funding necessary to fund their proxy. So I say, it could be a good thing.
Lieutenant Colonel Tony Shaffer, good to see you. Thanks so much.
Good seeing you. Thanks, Rob.
Retired Lieutenant Colonel Alex Pelbath joins us now. Sir, good to have you. Pentagon set to order 3,000 soldiers from the 82nd Airborne to the Middle East, the Army's emergency response force. Where does that play into all the news that we learned today? It seems like Trump feels like he finally has Iran where he wants them.
Yeah, I think this is a brilliant move by President Trump. Yeah, we see a couple things happening here. One, just like Tony mentioned a minute ago, this is great leverage. If President Trump's if peace through strength is going to be a real strategy, we have to do this strength part of it. And sending the 82nd, and by the way, I was the commander for the withdrawal of Afghanistan at the end, and this is the same division that was sent in to deal with that mess. So we're talking an extremely capable force that we're sending in this area. These aren't just regular troops. Sending the 82nd over there sends a very clear message. I don't think anybody anticipates at this moment boots on the ground. But what Iran is going to realize by seeing this is that President Trump means exactly what he says.
As far as kind of where we're at, and the president seems like we've made a big step here. We've got a major capitulation. We've got this being tossed around, this idea of a ceasefire. Tony just indicated that they might be down to their last 100 and 150 missiles. There are indications, as reporting out there, that there's certainly probably under 1,000 left in Iran. Mm-hmm. Do you think there's, again, just because it's so hard to trust such an evil, radical Islamist regime that lies with everything that they do, do you think there's any chance that they're goofing us somehow, that there's some kind of plot?
I don't think we trust them at all. I don't think they're going to pull one over on us. I don't think anybody pulls one over on President Trump. But I don't think there's anybody in these negotiations who trusts Iran in any way. And I think the maneuver of all these troops into the theater demonstrates exactly that. Hey, we're willing to talk to you. We're willing to come to the table. By the way, we're winning every single day, right? That is a good statistic you just threw out there, that they were launching hundreds of drones and missiles in the early days, and now they're down to single digits. I mean, we are winning every single day. There's no pressure on us to let off the gas here. There's no pressure on us to come to the negotiating table. But because we don't trust them, hey, we are going to demonstrate that we are willing to go every step of the way, right? This is not this. There is no limitation President Trump has put on our military to accomplish our objectives.
And unlike, administrations in the past in this country, we're not just going to say, "Oh, you're being nice." We're going to let
That's
you.
Exactly
we're
right.
going to have an eye on every little thing that they try and do here before we give an inch. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Lieutenant Colonel Alex Pelbath, thanks so much. We appreciate it.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Drop site news reporter Ryan Grimm, fresh from Cuba, touring the misery of this country, claiming that it's our country's fault. We're going to debate that with him coming up next. Plus, a little later in news from the left, Vince Vaughn calls out the death of late-night comedy.
Talk shows, to a large part, became really agenda-based. They all became the same show.
Yeah.
And they all became so about their politics.
I switched
to
Newsmax.
Newsmax.
Have you made the switch?
You bet I did. My whole family switched.
Millions are switching to Newsmax. You should too.
What if your GLP-1 for weight loss was as easy to take as a mint? Small, discreet, and easy. Think about that. No needles. This is compounded tirzepatide, a mint-flavored tablet designed to fit into your daily routine. You simply let it dissolve under your tongue. No mixing, filling, or storing your own syringes. Tirzepatide helps curb appetite and supports healthier eating by reducing cravings, including for sweets and carbs. And when your appetite feels under control, it can make it easier to eat less and move intentionally towards your weight loss goals. If weight loss has been on your mind, this may be the needle-free option you've been looking for. A simple daily tablet, as easy to take as a mint. Getting started is fast and surprisingly accessible. Just complete a quick online physician consultation. Here's how.
Save $50 with promo code SLIM at noneedles.com/slim. That's promo code SLIM at noneedles.com/slim.
Doctors' Preferred Liver Defense is doctor-developed to support your natural detox function with clinically validated, triple-tested key ingredients to energize and renew your liver. Find Liver Defense in the supplement aisle at Walmart. Doctors Preferred. Better science, better results.
Pop up the volume.
Go ahead. Crank the volume. We got you. USPS has increased daily package processing capacity by 46% in the past 5 years. And with USPS Ground Advantage, your packages stay in our secure network, dock to door, nationwide. For full visibility, near real-time tracking, affordable pricing, for peace of mind. USPS Ground Advantage.
Mike Hammond here, founder of Signal Relief. Meet Dr. Beth Dupree, breast cancer surgeon for over 35 years.
In my surgical career, I have treated thousands of patients, and finding effective pain relief has always been a priority. Believe me, I was skeptical, but Signal Relief caught my attention because it actually works. Clinical trials show over 85% of participants felt relief within 72 hours, with nearly half noticing a significant difference in just 15 minutes. Just place it near or above wherever you have the pain, whether it's your back, your shoulder, your neck, or your knee. Signal Relief Patch brings proven relief. I recommend it to my patients, family, and friends, and I get to witness and experience their pain relief firsthand, and that brings a smile to my face.
Join the hundreds of thousands who have experienced relief with the Signal Relief Patch, and it comes with a money-back guarantee. Trust Dr. Dupree and me. The patch works.
My haters are like mentally unwell. It's like every part of the American political spectrum, with the exception of like, socialists and communists. And the American government spent 60 years saying it's not the blockade, to say it's actually the Cuban government's fault. It's actually communism's fault. It's decades of propaganda. And it's so silly. If you go to Cuba, you very quickly understand that like almost everything that you learn about Cuba is just ridiculous.
Everything you learn about Cuba is ridiculous, he says, with the Cuba hat on. That's far-left influencer Hassan Piker. He's returned. Him and many others have returned from a propaganda weekend in Cuba, blaming U.S. imperialism for why the Cuban people have lived mostly in poverty for decades now. Piker became a multimillionaire here in this country thanks to American capitalism. Apparently, he doesn't want anyone else in the world to have that experience that he so relishes. He has a lot of nice toys. Hassan and the rest of the crew mostly stayed at a 5-star Havana hotel with all of the spoils. It's a city I've been to. I know the hotel. It's very nice. The rest of Cuba, though, very, very bad and suffering in a nationwide blackout right now. Here was the young man's response to criticisms over that hypocrisy.
The thing that people were complaining about, like the 5-star hotel, right? I found it really strange that they clipped me talking about it, and it's objectively the truth. The 5-star hotel is only one of the few hotels the U.S. government allows Americans to legally stay in. They're literally complaining that like these hotels are they have their own generators and they are able to keep the lights on. Yeah, because they're privately owned. That is the problem.
That's not the problem. If more stuff was privately owned, it'd probably be in a little bit better condition in that country, I'd imagine. Dropside News reporter Ryan Grimm also traveled to Cuba as well, reporting on all this. He's seen in this photo here. And Ryan joins us tonight, and it's good to have you back on the show. The Trump administration is trying to end a 70-year regime. It looks like these guys, along with you there, are trying to help it survive. Am I missing something?
Wait, they're trying to do what?
Trying to help this regime survive.
Who is?
Piker, most of the people there. I'm wondering if yourself, along with them, are included in that.
Yeah, the group that went along brought about 50 tons worth of medical supplies and solar panels. That's right.
Medical supplies and solar panels, and a lot of sympathies for the regime that controls the country, I imagine.
So let me try to help out your viewers a little bit here.
Right.
How do you feel about the fact that when Americans travel to a foreign country, in this case Cuba, they are told specifically a list of hotels that they are allowed to stay in another country?
I went through it because when I went and stayed there, it was the same. I stayed in an Airbnb. I think if you have if our country's trying to squeeze, our country's trying to.
What do you think of that?
I think our country's trying to end a regime that's been torturing people for a very long time, and they don't want to fund it. They don't want us funding it by paying money to a communist-owned entity like a hotel.
So if their system of government is so awful, why not just let it fail on its own? Why do we have to blockade them? And how
because they won't leave. They don't have elections. They won't leave power.
How do you think the United States economy would do if we cut off fuel for 3 straight months? No fuel has basically gotten into Cuba since the Venezuela operation.
Yeah, but I was there in 2019, Ryan, and it was still a horribly impoverished country. We're cutting off fuel to try and get this leadership out. Get them the hell out of there because they won't leave. They won't have an election. They won't leave.
Why do you care about like who's in charge in Cuba? Who elected you to do that? It's such a bizarre. Like there aren't enough problems in the United States here for you to worry about. Like
that's another side of it.
Really, like I can't even get my mind to a place where I would think it's my call. Like who runs Cuba? Who runs Haiti? Who runs Mexico? Who runs Iraq? Who runs Iran? Like
that's a fair
Israel.
That's a fair criticism. That's a fair criticism. But I mean, do you think it's better for do you want this regime to continue to run this country against the wishes of the people that are all impoverished?
It's not up to me. I live in Washington D.C. I vote in Washington D.C. elections, and I vote in federal elections. Where do you live?
You live in that's fair.
But where do you live?
I live in New York. And it's not.
Why should you vote? Why should you? Like, what do you have to do with Cuba?
Well, I think the prosperity of that country that's only 90 miles away from our border can't be a bad thing. And I'm just saying, what I'm asking you is,
then why not let them import oil?
It's fine. It's not America first. Let's put it there. But do you think that regime should be running the country?
Why does it bother you if Mexico sells oil to Cuba? You live in New York. In what world is it a New Yorker's responsibility to stop Mexico from selling oil to Cuba?
That's okay. Fair criticism right there. My question to you is, why do you care? Why did you travel there? Why did you? If you don't care, why did you travel there to try and support the regime?
I'm a journalist, and the United States is literally killing people. We are killing people. I toured 2 hospitals. One was a pediatric hospital.
Yep.
We implemented a new rule in February that says that if you're a private business, you can import oil. You can import fuel. So the hotel where we were required to stay is allowed by the United States government to have fuel. Hospitals, because they have a publicly run healthcare system, are not allowed to have fuel. I heard a lot of people complaining that the hotels still had power, but the hospitals didn't. Not understanding, apparently, that it is a U.S. rule that blocks the hospitals from getting fuel. I toured the pediatric hospital. You know what the nurses and doctors there told me? They said when the power goes out, they immediately turn on their phone lights and race to the babies on ventilators.
Let me ask you this.
Because there's a gap between hold on.
I understand.
Hold on one
second. We're killing babies with
There's
no
a
power.
gap between when the power goes out and when the generator kicks in that can be up to like 5 or 6, 7 minutes. A baby can die in that time on a ventilator. So they have to take their phone, turn the light on, race, and hand pump the ventilator. Because the United States has decided that Mexico can't sell oil and fuel to Cuba.
Now that's
what
fine.
does that have to do with the United States?
That's fine. If you want to say it's not America first, that's fine. But let me ask you this. How many tens of thousands of people have died over the last 30, 40 years as this country has lived in extreme poverty? 88% of the people live in extreme poverty. The government will not allow any kind of capitalism in to bring these people up, to bring the quality of life up. How many thousands and thousands of their own people has that government killed? We're trying to strangle out a government here. And yes, there's going to be there's going to be some negative impacts of that, like you just described. That's fair. But how many people have died because of the government in power?
I interviewed the number 3 guy in Cuba. Cuba. I will let you have the interview. You can air the entire thing. He said Cuban nationals, Americans, are welcome to invest in Cuba. He said they're open to, in a holistic negotiation, compensating Americans for property that was seized during the revolution.
Well, they're capitulating now. Right.
What they want, they offered that in the 1960s. The United States refused it because we thought we were going to do regime change. So why take a deal if we're just going to do regime change?
Well,
we didn't overthrow the government. We failed over and over and over. We tried to assassinate Fidel Castro, like a dozen plus times. We tried an invasion, Bay of Pigs. It didn't work. Every other country, Italy, France, Spain, they all took compensation for what was nationalized. So they're saying you can invest here. We will compensate you for what was nationalized. All we're asking is that you lift the sanctions and leave us alone. Why
leave
is that
the
a bad
regime
idea?
alone?
Leave Cuba alone.
Leave the regime alone and let the people continue to suffer. I mean, did you see the people there? The misery of the people that live in that country under these a-holes? It's horrific.
The misery is like unspeakable.
Unspeakable.
It is unspeakable.
Been that way for a long time.
It's a lot worse. It's the people who were there in December and people who obviously live there have telling me like it's noticeably worse. You know how you have people like starvation and homelessness wasn't really a thing. Like there was poverty. It wasn't like
extreme
a rich
poverty.
country.
Yeah.
But even a few months ago,
90% of the people live under
$2
$2 a day. I mean, that's nobody in America lives under $2 a day. Not a single person. I gotta leave it there. I really do. You're a good sport for coming on, Ryan Grimm from Dropside News.
You got it.
Good to see you. The left continues to prioritize protecting illegals, no matter how atrocious the crimes. We're also going to explain this video and how misrepresented it was next with Congressman Andy Ogles. Coming up.
We've seen the horrifying consequences of Democrats' deadly open border extremism.
It's our America. We built it. Courage, freedom. Millions go to Newsmax when they need to know. Start today on the free Newsmax app. Newsmax is real news for real people.
Greg trusts Prevagen for his brain, and this is his story.
Hi, I'm Greg. I live in Bloomington, Illinois. I'm not an actor. I'm just a regular person. 8 years ago, I just didn't feel like I was on my game. I started taking Prevagen, and I want people to know that Prevagen has worked for me. Give it a try. I want it to help you just like it has helped me. I've been taking Prevagen for 8 years now, and it's still helping me tremendously.
Prevagen has been the #1 selling brain supplement nationwide for over 10 years.
Have you written a book but don't know how to get it published? We do. We take our authors through the publishing process from editing to distribution and sales. Christian Faith Publishing distributes all book genres, and we understand you have more than a book. It's unique, personal, and written with a higher purpose. Call the number on the screen or scan the QR code, and we'll send you a free writer's guide packed with tips, tricks, and templates.
Call or scan for your free writer's guide, 833-550-0129. That's 833-550-0129.
Hi there, I'm Dean Heskin, President and CEO of Swiss America. With trillions of dollars vanishing from the stock portfolios of retiring Americans, many hardworking people I speak with are concerned about the holdings in their IRAs. But I have good news for you. Our team at Swiss America can show you how easy it is to own gold in your IRA. You see, even with economic turmoil all around us, gold continues to not only be a safe haven, but is also increasing to all-time highs. The volatility of markets has created a lot of undue stress for people. Wouldn't you like that peace of mind that diversifying into metals can provide? For over 40 years, Swiss America has helped people just like you own precious metals in your IRAs. So don't miss this opportunity. Call or text our team at the number on your screen to receive a free copy of our Gold IRA brochure today.
Doctors say having a medical emergency kit is like having an urgent care and pharmacy at home. Let me bring in Dr. McCullough to explain more.
Most people know when they're getting sick, but waiting to see a doctor is often too late.
So the key is having medicines before you need them.
Yes, and it includes doctor-prescribed medicines to treat common and serious issues like generic Z-Pak, amoxicillin, antibiotics, antivirals for flu, pneumonia, strep, ear and sinus infections, UTIs, and more.
So it is like having an urgent care at home.
Exactly. No waiting, no pharmacy, no copays. You feel better faster and avoid serious complications and hospitalizations.
How do you know what to take?
Just match your symptoms to the doctor-written guide or schedule a quick telehealth call.
Great advice. I understand ordering is fast online, and we've put the website and $45 off code on the screen. Thank you, doctor.
Visit urgentcarekit.com/news, promo code news.
This is keratin debris, where nail fungus grows. Nonix Nail Gel cleans out fungus by removing keratin debris. Using Nonix, 90% of nails improve. Get clinically proven results. So effective, it's money-back guaranteed.
Keep getting reminders of Biden's open border continuing to be felt. 30-year-old Mexican illegal Jesus Alejandro Ramirez Padilla arrested in Salt Lake City, slitting a woman's throat. High on meth, told state officials he felt like killing somebody, so he strangled this woman from behind. She became unconscious, fell to the ground. He put her out of her misery, slitting her throat a few times. These are the people that have been brought into your country. We'll learn of this one, along with the story of the 18-year-old Loyola freshman Sheridan Gorman, shot and killed. She was walking with her friends near the Chicago campus, hoping to see a glimpse of the Northern Lights, when a 25-year-old Venezuelan illegal, Jose Medina, charged with first-degree murder, walks up and shoots her in the head. I want to see the Northern Lights. You get shot in the head. That's Chicago. The president on this earlier.
Just in the past few days, we've seen the horrifying consequences of Democrats' deadly open border extremism. The illegal alien monster charged with Sheridan's brutal murder had come illegally from Venezuela and been released into our country by sleepy Joe Biden.
Illinois' governor finally addressing something he hates talking about, just how awful his biggest city is.
Those failures, of course, extend beyond the borders of Illinois. That's their national failures, a failure to have comprehensive immigration reform, a failure of the president to follow his own edict to go after the worst of the worst.
And then there's this story. As Trump and Republicans try to remove these dangerous Neanderthals that have no business in our country, on Sunday, before ICE agents were deployed to airports, Guatemalan nationals Angelina Lopez Jimenez and Wendy Godinez Lopez were rearrested at San Francisco airport. Now, there's video of this. We're going to roll here in a second. After Lopez Jimenez tried to flee while being escorted to international terminal for processing. They were being actively deported. They resisted as they were being moved to the airport to be deported that very day. Resisted ICE agents as well. The mother and daughter have the final removal orders from an immigration judge back in 2019. Then they flee in the airport. Now, what happens here is all the white liberals at SFO, San Francisco Airport, assume that these are the ICE agents that were helping TSA, and they were just trying to deport people in the middle of a security line, when in fact they were just watching the latest crime by an illegal so entitled that she ignored a final deportation order for 7 years and was so arrogant that she was flying domestically despite those orders, and then she gets arrested in an airport and taken down right here in this moment. Congressman Andy Ogles of Tennessee has been calling to ramp up the denaturalization of foreigners who lie to get citizenship, and he joins us tonight. Something to see. You know, this moment at SFO Airport was so surreal. They could have been arresting this woman for smuggling fentanyl, and white liberals would have been enraged.
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely insane. Look, if you came into this country illegally, you should not be here. Deport them all. Yeah. It's that simple. This is not a complicated equation. The president has made his commitment that he's going to deport individuals who violate our laws, who have violated our laws. I had the fortune of being with the president yesterday in Memphis as we celebrated the decrease in crime in that great city. And then I traveled with him on Air Force One. And one of the things we discussed was the work that our great men and women of ICE are doing, putting themselves in harm's way to defend this country. So kudos to the president, kudos to the governor of Tennessee, and to really local and state law enforcement as well in Tennessee. Right. Because when you have that collaboration, keep in mind Memphis was the #1 city in the country for violent crime just a year and a half ago. And now you're seeing a 40 to 70% decrease in crimes across the board. Why? Because you have a police presence. Why? Because you have this determination to get criminals and thugs off the streets. And oh, by the way, most of them are illegal. Yeah, and the great irony is, I mean, how many hundreds of black lives has this president saved? And to the Democrat Party that focuses singularly, I think, on the plight of the minority in this country, they absolutely hate that story, and we'll never talk about it. We'll never focus on it because it goes so directly against their narrative. I got to get to one more from you here before I let you go. Minnesota, that fraud scandal brought so much to light. Foreign nationals exposed stealing so much of our money. We now have a 38-year-old illegal from Azerbaijan living in California. This guy stole $90 million. One guy. $90 million in government funds in a healthcare scheme. You have a Pakistani guy, 46 million he stole. One guy, 46 million. Medical testing laboratory in Oregon. We've seen hospice fraud all through Southern California. It's so absurd, Congressman, how easy it is to steal money from this government and how there is no apparatus in place to catch any of these people. And it makes me wonder why I haven't been stealing from the government for these past 10, 15 years. Yeah, well, I mean, if you want to get rich, open a Somali daycare. I mean, holy cow. But, you know, that's why I have the Assimilation Act, which brings an end to the chain migration. So instead of having, 700,000 people a year claiming that they're a relative of someone who is here, we cut that out and only immediate family. So maybe 50,000 would get in. And even then, they would have to justify why that they're here. So we've got to put you've got to deport, you've got to prosecute, you've got to denaturalize, you've got to deport. You've got to deport. And now we have to have the DOJ equip and fund the DOJ to go after these criminals, because you're talking about hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars, if not billions of dollars, being stolen from the American taxpayer. And keep in mind that the suicide rate amongst our veterans is still roughly 20 a day. That money should be going to them. We have children across this country, American citizens, children who don't have textbooks. They are stealing from you, but they're stealing from those in our community that need it the most, like our veterans, like children. I've had enough. I'm sick of it. And you come here illegally, we're going to deport you. And if you commit a crime, we're going to put you in prison and we're going to deport you. I don't know why it has to be that any more complicated than that.
And the idea that billions of dollars, if billions of dollars was stolen from Google, from Amazon, if one guy stole $90 million from one of these companies, they'd know about it in about 10 seconds. But the U.S. government has no clue. The only thing that they know how to do is to turn around and say, you need to pay your fair share. We need more money from you, and to bully you into giving them more cash so they can light it on fire. It's despicable. Thanks for being one of the good ones. Congressman Andy Ogles, we appreciate it.
Sir, thank you.
Good to see you. As CNN braces for the Ellisons, one of the network's littlest contributors with the biggest ego has some mighty words.
I refuse to work for an organization that doesn't respect journalists.
You know Rob Finnerty. He's smart, bold, and stands strong for your values. Rob is fighting for you. Watch Finnerty weeknights only on Newsmax.
No.
No.
Uh-uh. Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Isn't this great?
Yeah! Yeah. I can do a cartwheel in here.
Would you like to join us? No. We would love to join you.
In today's uncertain economic climate, don't leave your future to chance. Earn a 10 to 12% fixed return with the safety of hard assets. Strategic metals include technology metals, rare earths, oil and gas royalties, and real estate, also eligible for IRA and 401k rollovers. For the last 35 years, we've helped investors reduce taxes and increase wealth. We can help you protect your nest egg with the safety of hard assets, steady income, no risk to your principal, 10 to 12% fixed return earnings. Call now or visit scottgengler.com.
Don't kibble your dog.
Oh, hey, Dr. Marty.
Hey, Matt.
But what's wrong with this? It's premium stuff.
Let's check it out. It's still kibble, which means it's ultra-processed at extremely high temperatures that destroy the nutrients in the food. But at Dr. Marty, we gently freeze-dried premium meats, fruit, and vegetables, locking in their nutrients.
Never kibbled.
You got it, kid, and they're gonna love it.
Your Florida life is calling, and we have the answer. Valencia in Florida by GL Homes. Premium 55-plus living in 5 prime Florida locations. Gorgeous new homes from the mid-300s to $2.5 million. World-class resort-style living 24/7. Huge clubhouses, on-site dining, pickleball, and more. Effortless, low-maintenance living. Valencia, your Florida life is calling. Experience more at valenciaflorida.com.
I lost 110 pounds. You couldn't tell at all because of my excess skin. Sono Bello changed that in one visit.
Introducing the new Lift EX, the just one visit, total body transformation everyone is talking about.
I am super happy with my results.
I decided to give Sono Bello a try. Look at me, I have a silhouette. You can see my waist.
Lift EX is Sono Bello's breakthrough 360-degree body lift alternative. Our body contouring experts sculpt, tighten, and lift your stomach, waist, thighs, and backside, all in just one visit with less downtime.
Sono Bello targeted the areas diet and exercise could not do. I found me again.
Sono Bello has over 50,000 5-star reviews, and Lift EX is exclusively available at Sono Bello, America's #1 cosmetic surgery specialist. Book your free, personalized consultation today. Easy monthly plans make your best body more affordable than ever.
This year is my year thanks to Sono Bello.
Call Sono Bello for your free consultation today.
Make your tax refund go places at Blue Compass RV. Lock in lower rates now. New RVs from $98 a month. Every RV includes a VIP membership to RV Complete. Over $5,000 in value. Shop tax refund specials at Blue Compass RV.
You don't want to work for the Ellisons. I've spent a lot of time with Larry Ellison. He's a terrible person. I don't think they'll be good owners. I don't. I have no interest in journalism. And I refuse to work for an organization that doesn't respect journalists.
It's a little radical left-wing nobody. CNN's Kara Swisher with her dumb little aviator glasses trying to make herself a big brand. Tiny little journalist she claims to be with a big mouth and aviator sunglasses, calling the future owner of her company a terrible person. Why? Because he's not a radical leftist like she is. The Ellisons are changing media for the better. They started with CBS. They're about to turn CNN back into a real news network, which they departed from long ago. Something that infuriates little Kara Swisher. CNN's former media reporter, pro-censor Oliver Darcy, feeling the incoming pressure as well. Jake Tapper and Anderson Cooper, both experimenting with new looks for their shows. Take a look.
So you're probably wondering what's going on, why we're in my office for the first hour of The Lead today. So it's an experiment.
Robert Mueller left the FBI in 2013, but when his country called during the first Trump administration to investigate foreign interference in the 2016 election, he once again answered that call.
So, I mean, CNN spends millions of dollars on studios. They put these guys in closets with little fake microphones to try and look more authentic. I don't know. Larry Elder, author and radio host, joins us. Matt Schlapp from CPAC with us, too. Good to have you both here. Larry, I mean, seeing Tapper and Anderson Cooper try and make their setup look worse to try and get a better viewership, that's groveling to the extreme, isn't it?
Well, you know, the problem is that CNN has had declining ratings, and this is a very competitive business. I've been in a very long time. Yeah. You don't attract audience. All of a sudden, you lose your job, and they're very afraid of that. And what they really are afraid of is that CNN may go into a different direction, i.e. actually journalism, doing something other than berating Donald Trump 95% of the time. That's what they're worried about. Where was Tapper when he was defending Joe Biden's cognitive decline? Where were these Anderson Cooper when they were running the Russia collusion stuff? We can go on and on down the line. This is what they're afraid of. They may have to actually start doing some quote unquote reporting.
Yeah, no kidding. Matt, I mean, as far as the criticism of Ellison coming in, especially from somebody like Kara Swisher, who makes her opinions politically so obvious, and then she calls herself a journalist. She is so obviously political in everything that she does, and then she says, "I don't want to work for a political boss." I mean, how does that not reek to everyone around her of the hypocrisy that she is?
Look, the people who own corporate news entities want to make money. They're investors. It's called the free market system, and I'd love to introduce that to CNN. Actually, when you cover news, you can also be profitable in doing it. And matter of fact, when Ted Turner, a billionaire, by the way, established CNN and turned it into a juggernaut, I used to watch it every day, even as a young man. When we had the original Persian Gulf War, everybody watched CNN. It was fair and balanced. It was in the middle. And you got the facts. And somewhere along the lines, we lost the thread because the journalists that did those shows, Rob, used to tell people like me, you can't be on because you're a climate denier, or you're an election denier, or you're a gender denier. And then we ended up in crazy land, and I'm glad we're going to get some sense of normalcy back.
I do wonder, Larry, do you think that can CNN pull off anything here is the real question. Has the brand been so tarnished? Is anybody ever going to look at it, no matter which way it goes, and say, this is something that I want to watch and I want to trust? We've seen CBS is struggling right now a bit with its ratings as they try to reformulate.
I think the answer is it depends on who they hire. I mean, I used to be on CNN regularly, and a lot of other conservatives used to be on regularly. Now they just pretty much stopped doing that, except for Scott Jennings, which is about the only entertaining thing that I watch now on CNN. He's squaring off with 4 or 5 people, therefore it's a fair fight. So it depends on who they hire.
Yeah, good point. Larry, Elder, Matt Schlapp, good to see you guys. Thanks so much. How on earth did this get canceled? Up next.
This is very dramatic and I'm sure has deep meaning for you all. So let's have a shot and play nice.
He's breathing. Okay, we're good. Children account for 75% of choking deaths.
That's why I recommend everyone have a life vac in your home, car, or business.
The life vac is simple to use. Just place, push, and pull.
Its suction removes an obstruction out of the airway quickly, saving a life.
If you use your life vac for an emergency, we'll replace it for free. Order now.
Go to lifevac.net or call 877-543-3822.
To a hacker, your tax return isn't just paperwork, it's a gold mine. Your social security number and bank data are their biggest payday of the year. Old antivirus software can't keep up. You need PCmatic. Our default deny technology blocks every single threat that hasn't been pre-approved. If we don't know it, we block it. Secure your return right now. Buy PCmatic antivirus and we will give you PCmatic VPN for free. American-made security for homes, businesses, and government agencies. Visit PCmatic.com.
Mike Hammond here, founder of Signal Relief. Meet Dr. Beth Dupree, breast cancer surgeon for over 35 years.
In my surgical career, I have treated thousands of patients, and finding effective pain relief has always been a priority. Believe me, I was skeptical, but Signal Relief caught my attention because it actually works. Clinical trials show over 85% of participants felt relief within 72 hours, with nearly half noticing a significant difference in just 15 minutes. Just place it near or above wherever you have the pain, whether it's your back, your shoulder, your neck, or your knee. Signal Relief Patch brings proven relief. I recommend it to my patients, family, and friends, and I get to witness and experience their pain relief firsthand, and that brings a smile to my face.
Join the hundreds of thousands who have experienced relief with the Signal Relief Patch, and it comes with a money-back guarantee. Trust Dr. Dupree and me. The patch works.
If your dog struggles with stiff joints, low energy, messy poops, or an itchy coat, the cause might be sitting in your dog's food bowl right now. Kibble. That's why we created Badlands Ranch Superfood Complete, gently air-dried, packed with real canine superfoods to help your dog unlock puppy-like energy, smoother digestion, healthier joints, shinier coats, and more. Thousands have already made the switch. Visit your local pet food retailer today.
I'm Richard Kern, and I love my hose. It's my new Pocket Hose Copperhead, the lightweight, kink-free hose that grows while the pocket pivot swivels to eliminate creasing at the spigot. We use 3 unique layers of latex wrapped in our unique interlaced sleeve with no seams to burst or snag. And when you turn off the water, away it goes, shrinking back to a pocket-size hose. Get your Pocket Hose today at the Home Depot, Walmart, and on Amazon with immediate free delivery. Order now.
You woke up with a sore throat and a low-grade fever. You know you are getting sick, so here's your choices. You can get sicker and miss work, try to see a doctor this week, or sit hours in a crowded waiting room at urgent care.
I have a smarter option for you. Open your medical emergency kit. Match your symptoms to doctor-recommended prescription in your booklet and take the right meds now and get well faster.
This is not a first aid kit. It's like having an urgent care in your home. It includes doctor-prescribed medications to treat over 39 medical issues like respiratory infections, strep throat, pneumonia, UTIs, and more.
No waiting to see the doctor and no standing in line at the pharmacy. It's right here.
Every home should have at least one medical emergency kit, and here's how to order.
Order online and save $45. Your kit to treat dozens of common and serious illnesses is rushed to your door. Visit urgentcarekit.com/news, promo code NEWS. That's urgentcarekit.com/news, promo code NEWS.
Welcome back. Time now for news from the left. Democrats in mourning. One of their heroes has passed. Kermit Gosnell, a Philadelphia abortion doctor convicted in 2013 for killing 3 babies that were born alive, dying at the age of 85 in prison in Pennsylvania. Gosnell was sentenced to life in connection with the deaths of 3 infants and a woman in his care at his so-called House of Horrors clinic in West Philadelphia. Gosnell presented himself as a helper for desperate and poor women, found guilty of 21 counts of performing illegal late-term abortions and 211 counts of violating Pennsylvania's 24-hour waiting period before performing abortions. Former employees testified that he delivered babies who were still moving and breathing. Then him and his assistants dispatched the newborns by snipping their spine, as he referred to it, now dead at 85. Would not be considered a villain by a rather substantial subsection of people in this country, if you can imagine. But that is the truth. How sad is that? Next up, Paramount's Star Trek Starfleet Academy falling flat on its face. I had no idea they made TV shows this stupid, ending its second season after its second season due to a total lack of viewership. The show, which featured drag queens and DEI training in the futuristic space setting of Star Trek, has flopped about as hard as anything can flop. The show was originally picked up by Paramount in 2023. The streamer renewing the show for a second season before the first had aired. Obviously was a big mistake considering what we know now. Across its 10-episode first season, it failed to rank in the Nielsen top 10 streaming viewership charts. Here's just a look. That's not even close to how bad it was. Here's a look at just how bad this show was.
If I were you, I'd consider leaving quickly.
Eat glass, bro. You leave.
I concur with Zola. Eat glass.
This is very dramatic and I'm sure has deep meaning for you all. But I have other customers trying to enjoy the bar. So let's have a shot and play nice.
The Badlands, Captain. Subspace instability may be creeping in, and we're the first to chart it.
These would make an excellent practical study module for the Spatial Harmonics Lab, Captain.
All right. Well, let's not turtle the ship on our first run.
Imagine. Can you imagine putting something like that on your television? With a straight, even if you loved Star Trek more than any other show, are you watching that? There's no way. And finally, actor Vince Vaughn calling out late night shows hosted by people like Stephen Colbert and Jimmy Kimmel. Take a listen.
The talk shows, to a large part, became really agenda-based.
Yeah.
They were going to evangelical people to what they thought. You know what I mean? And so people just rejected it because it didn't feel authentic. It felt like they had an agenda. And it stopped being funny, and it started feeling like I was in a class I didn't want to take. But if you look at what happened to the talk shows and why their ratings are low, it's got only to do with the fact of what you just said, which is they all became the same show.
Yeah.
And they all became so about their politics and who's good and who's bad. And it's like, imagine sitting next to someone like that on a plane.
Imagine sitting next to someone like that on an effing plane. And yes, like a class you didn't sign up for that you never wanted to attend. That's what those shows have become, and that's why they've become echo chambers for only people that think like the hosts. And they leave out a huge subsection of the rest of the country that have no show to go to on, again, these federally regulated television networks that are propagandizing their audience. All right, the hilarious reason the California gubernatorial debate was just canceled. Up next.
Closed captioning brought to you by MagnaLife Knee Pain Relief for pain, stiffness, and inflammation of the knees.
The pain in your knees is real. Here's what real customers have to say about MagnaLife Knee Pain Relief Gel. It has worked wonders. I love it.
Available at your local retailer.
After graduating, I needed a website that could handle all of my important documents. GovPlus pre-filled my forms, stored everything in a secure vault, and even protected my identity. After we got married, updating my name on my social security card, ID, and passport felt endless.
GovPlus made it so easy to apply for and manage it all in one place.
3 kids means triple the documents. With the GovPlus family plan, it's all organized and updated on time with alerts before anything's due.
GovPlus, all of life's paperwork on autopilot.
What if your GLP-1 for weight loss was as easy to take as a mint? Small, discreet, and easy. Think about that, no needles. This is compounded tirzepatide, a mint-flavored tablet designed to fit into your daily routine. You simply let it dissolve under your tongue. No mixing, filling, or storing your own syringes. Tirzepatide helps curb appetite and supports healthier eating by reducing cravings, including for sweets and carbs. And when your appetite feels under control, it can make it easier to eat less and move intentionally towards your weight loss goals. If weight loss has been on your mind, this may be the needle-free option you've been looking for. A simple daily tablet, as easy to take as a mint. Getting started is fast and surprisingly accessible. Just complete a quick online physician consultation. Here's how.
Save $50 with promo code SLIM at noneedles.com/slim. That's promo code SLIM at noneedles.com/slim.
Newsmax, you like Newsmax. I like it too. Newsmax, you like Newsmax. I like it too.
It's true. Millions of Americans agree with President Trump, and they're switching to Newsmax. They're watching great shows with Greta, Carl Higbie, Rob Schmitt, Finnerty, and more. If you're tired of big media, start watching Newsmax. It's free to start. Go to newsmaxplus.com for immediate access. Get all of President Trump's most important events live. Imagine watching Mike Huckabee's Israel Report, our Melania documentary, Clint Eastwood, Charlie Kirk specials, even the movie Jesus of Nazareth by Franco Zeffirelli. Once you start Newsmax Plus, you won't stop. So try it for free. Go to newsmaxplus.com, then download the app. It's easy. So make the switch to Newsmax Plus today.
Finally tonight, Democrat candidates for governor in California outraged over a last-minute decision to axe a scheduled debate over claims of racism. USC pulling the debate scheduled for tonight. It was to feature Sheriff Chad Bianco and Steve Hilton on the Republican side. Then you had Katie Porter, Eric Swalwell, a couple others on the Democrat side. Low-polling Democrats, though, complained that they were being excluded from this race over their own race. Like former Biden HHS and California Attorney General Javier Becerra, I should say, the Mayor Antonio Villaraigosa, Betty Yee, Tony Thurmond, they said that they weren't allowed to debate because they're not white. They actually claimed this at a USC debate. Becerra posting that we fought and we won and stood up against an unfair candidate debate setup that prematurely chose winners and losers. By the way, the formula, Rob Finnerty, to determine this was created by a USC professor. It had nothing to do with any racial components. But of course, in California, if a minority screams anything, no matter how ridiculous it is, you get full capitulation immediately. They cancel the debate. That is as good as it gets.
Good to see you again. I'll tell you what, I am so darn happy that Betty Yee is going to be on that stage when they do get together.
When they do it.
She is a
She's
firecracker.
polling at about 0.2. She's going to win it.
Yeah, she'll be up there. So good for California Democrats. It's, you know, I lived there for a number of years, and that thing would be a ballot measure every decade to maybe turn it into like 5 states. I voted yes for it. I was like, yeah, break it up.
It used to be a red state in the 80s.
Yeah, way back. Ronald Reagan. All right, Rob, good seeing you. Finnerty starts now.